Hello, Sam.
Hello, Belize.
What are we watching today?
Love and basketball. Like we are focusing on Black voices this month. This is both of our first times watching this movie, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say this was a blind pick that Sam chose because you saw it on a bunch of lists, I think is what it was.
On every freaking list, I dare you. I will put money on the table. If you look up like best romance films of all time, this is in the top 10. What were your thoughts? What were your initial thoughts when you watched it? Like, right off the bat.
I think it was really sweet. Like it's really cute. I really like the opening of it. I always love seeing them as kids, and seeing like that kind of interaction. It's so wholesome, and it's also like it was just so real. Like that would I definitely would buy that. That's how kids would interact, especially about like. And yeah, I really like the concept of like splitting it up into four quarters, like you would in a game.
I didn't pick up on the fact that it's a four-quarter split until right now. Whenever they would go like third quarter, second quarter, I was like, that makes no sense. What's going on? But now I see like they literally start off, they meet when they're 11, and then by the end of the film, they're like in their late 20s. I don't know how like female basketball works, like women's basketball. She like leaves the game and then comes back and has a baby and yet still goes pro. And that's like insane to me. But I mean, let's just gush. Let's just talk. First of all, this is written and directed by a woman.
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
I didn't know that either. And when then she popped up, I think her name is Gina. When she popped up at the end, I was like, oh my God. I also want to highlight what you said about the children. Like that just felt so honest. And I love the concept of like, this isn't just a friends to lovers trope. They have a shared love, something in common that they both like would die for in two very strong different ways, which is basketball. And I love seeing them grow up and like they were always at each other's games. Like you can't tell if they're best friends or if they like bicker, but like when something's going on in his life, he literally just goes over to her window and sleeps on the floor and there's no conversation about it. It just is.
I loved that moment. That's like I have very few notes because I don't usually write notes when I watch something for the first time. But that was one of the ones where I was like, I love that you just literally like it as if it happens all the time, which that's very sad. But I love that you can just like crawl in and she just has like sheets that she can give him, and it's like non-discussion, he just sleeps there sort of thing. At first, what I was expecting with them after seeing how they were when they were little, I thought they were never going to talk to each other. I thought they weren't friends when they were older. Like second quarter started and they would like she was at the game and I figured they don't talk to each other. Like I didn't think she was going to give him the note, or that was good. I thought that was going to be her reason to talk to him for the first time in a while, was to give him the note that the girl gave her.
I love that you say that because I feel like that's what we usually see with like these friends to lovers, like girl next door thing, where they just like break apart. And then, like, he obviously became like the cool guy, but she was captain of the women's basketball team. And he's the son of like the Clippers player. And so I thought it was so cool that she just goes over to him and he's like, I need a ride. And he's like, blah, blah, blah. But I feel like the only reason they don't talk at school is because he's such a ladies' man that like he's with his boys all day long and she doesn't do anything except for play basketball. But like when Shawnee wanted to get with Q, who did she go to immediately? Not just because she's the girl next door, because I bet you everyone at that school knows they're like this. You know what I mean? Like they're basically brother and sister is the way that they approach each other and act with each other. You know what I mean? Because like she just doesn't look hot. Like she's fucking gorgeous. But she's, like not like Shawnee, not like Gabrielle Union. She's not like the other girls. So like I don't think they view her as like a threat. They view her as like a way in, like if I get on this girl's good side, like I can get next to Q. I don't know. The minute this man walked on the screen in high school, I was like, the energy of this human being right now is radiant. I was like, oh my God, to be a guy who's rich, connected, and really good at a game. Like there was one beat in particular when they were children that I loved so fucking deeply. And it's the part where they have their first kiss. I teared up. I literally teared up. I don't know why. I think it's the way that it was shot. You said it perfectly. When the sister is like doing her hair and the mom walks in the room and she's like, hey, tomorrow you're going to go with the neighbor boy to school. And she just like very quietly says like, make it look nice, okay? And you just know. And they beat the shit out of each other. And I love the fact that from day one, she's like, I'm not riding on your bike.
I love that. And I think it was also like such a great moment of just seeing that like Q is trying to do everything the way that like that's how it's done sort of thing. Like clearly he's never done it, but like he just like has a set of rules in his head. I don't know if he learned it from older kids or from his dad, but it was just so interesting to see that that's like this is how this little boy thinks relationship should work.
Hugh has been obsessed with his dad since he was like born. Like the first thing he says to her is like, I'm gonna play like my dad and I'm gonna get his number like my dad and I want to go to USC like my dad. Like when they're asking him like where are you gonna go to college and the dad's like Princeton, you go into his room and the production design is all USC, USC, USC. It's literally on a drawer in his bedroom. And like everything about him is his father. And he views his father on this pedestal of being a great husband, a great provider, a great player, a great man. And so he wants to replicate all the ways that he's seen his father treat his mother because he wants to be that type of man. And so when the veneer is lifted and the dad was cheating on the mom and has a paternity like scandal going on, it almost felt natural to me that he would then, the second the going gets a little tough and he's not getting the attention he deserves, because he's constantly been the only child of this couple who's like fed him nothing but like you're the best, you're the best, you're the best. Of course he's going to start looking around because he is his father's son. And it's like a moment in his life that he has to either tackle that fact and go, am I going to lead this life that my father did, or am I going to be a better man than my father ever was? Like when his father tells him in the hospital, you were a better ball player than me.
I hated him. I hated Q that like last fourth or whatever, at the very least, of the movie. I didn't like that he would like brought someone else on a date just to make her jealous and to like be like, you didn't make time for me, so like what's going on here? I don't need a relationship with you. You're clearly too busy. And it was like a weird backwards way of like breaking up but making it feel like it was just all on her, like manipulating her and making it seem like it's just her fault. She doesn't have enough time for him.
She says to him, I would never make you choose.
And he says such an unfair thing, which is I wouldn't, that thing, like you wouldn't have to tell me because I would just do it. That is so unfair. There's no proof of that. Like,
But she would never ask that of you. It would literally never be a word out of her mouth.
Even if there was a situation where she was not feeling well and she didn't ask him to come over, but he like, you know what I mean? Like we don't have proof of that. We don't see a situation where he shows up when she's not feeling well. I'm not seeing him prioritizing her over basketball, but he has this expectation of.
She did need someone. She was having a horrible experience on her team. She was having a horrible, horrible experience, and they're vibing together and they're having a beautiful time. They're a good couple. He's supportive to her. It's really nice. It's good. But he's like here and she's like here, and he's still here. He just has the like floor ripped from beneath him of his father, and he's starting to crumble at the same time that like the only reason she got a spot on the team is because a girl got pregnant and didn't show up. And then the only time she got a spot on the playing team is because her person that had her position got into an injury. And then she's on the fucking team and finally she's scoring points. She's kicking ass. She goes to this party. She feels like she's on top of the world. One of her teammates comes up to her and is like, yo, Q, you hear about your girl? Like, did you hear everything she did? And he immediately dismisses it. And then she goes looking for him. And I love what this film does without dialogue, just body language. We see him with a girl talking in her ear, and we know. When guys pull that shit up like, I was just talking to her. If every single person in that audience knows you were fucking around, from not even listening to you, just from your body language, don't give me that shit. And she's so good, she's so powerful, and she walks over to him, and that girl doesn't give a fuck. Everyone knows they're together, and then he shows up. She goes to his room, and he does that shit in front of her. I hated him. I hated him for how small he was making the woman that we know that is so big. He was making her feel small because he felt small.
I think this also hits close because we both had relationships where it was like people who were like in our department, you know what I mean? People who were doing the thing we wanted to do, even if they weren't doing the direct exact role, they were still into film and therefore like wanting to do film. And we both know that if this was a situation where Q was not a good basketball player, I think then it would have been a weird, much weirder, competitive, like unhealthy, toxic dynamic if he was not as good as she was. He's able to sit on the sideline with the child because at that point he's given up basketball. Like he's gotten over it, but not because it's related to her, because it had to do with his dad the whole time. But
he tore his ACL. His whole story started to crumble the second he wanted to like stick it to his dad. The second he was like, I want to drop out of school and go pro, because you don't really have a safety net after that. The second his ACL was torn, like, yeah, he was playing for the Lakers, but the way the Lakers were talking about him when they were like, okay, now the subs are going in, like he was a small person on the team. He wasn't like this big dynamo. When he tore his ACL, she, who's kicking ass over in Spain, flew there. The last time he needed me, I did not make time for him. Now he needs me. We haven't spoken in 5 years. I'm showing up with flowers. And she hates flowers. Look at the two moms in this film. Women are meant to be at home, taking care of the kids, supporting the man and everything he wants because he's going to provide for her. And the mother has this beautiful monologue in this movie. Go fuck yourself, basically. Like, I had dreams, I had two kids. I think that's what Q like needed to reconcile with and get over. If you want a woman like Monica, you need to start reconciling in your mind with what you think a woman is meant to become and the type of man that needs to meet her there. Although it did kill me when she gives up on European basketball.
The only reason I understood that was because I'm like, well, okay, if you're not getting it, she hung out with her old teammate, but I was like, no one else is with you guys? No one from either team is with you guys to hang out and go drinking. That seems like such an easy activity to do with literally anyone on the team. How little do you know this team? She doesn't speak the language of the team. I feel like I don't know. I feel like the fact that she even did it for a while is like really brave because I'm like, I don't think I'd be able to, as much as the travel would be a perk, like maybe for a little bit, but then I'd be like, I don't speak the same language. Everyone just passes the ball to me because like that's the whole coach's plan, and I can't even speak the same language as the coach. I'm not friends with them because of that, and then my family's all the way far away and I have no one here with me. I do get what you mean because it killed me because it made it seem, which maybe that was her final reason, like it was because of Q that she was giving it up, and that's what killed me.
I think it was. I think that's why she told him that too. Like, I think she missed him because she specifically says to him later, like, I don't want to play basketball anymore because you're not a part of it. Can we talk about the differences between the moms and like the relationships with the parents?
I think just like the moms even having to have that first initial conversation, that was like so cringeworthy. I keep feeling like we saw Q's parents more throughout the film, but then again, we did see a good amount of Monica's too, so.
They connected more to basketball than the other couple did. And it also was like, well, this is like the truth, like the underbelly of what it's like to be a basketball wife. Like, do you really want to marry Q? Do you really want to marry a man that's going to be surrounded 24/7 by women? Like, I loved the monologue that the dad gives him later of like, there's 30 women downstairs in the lobby, 15 they get past security, 5 in the party because they got along with the guys, and 1, the boldest, is right outside your door. And it happens so often it just becomes a part of the game. It's interesting to have someone actually like say it.
Speaking of the game, there is this show, I think it's on Netflix currently, that's called The Game.
The Game. Yes, I love The Game.
Yeah, okay, you watch it too? So that was literally making me think of that because I was like, that becomes a heavy theme in that show as well, the concept of cheating and about how like women are just available to them all the time. Like, and so I think like seeing it both these sources, I was like, wow, like I just think that like it's just a challenge and that's just the way of life for them and their wives kind of thing. Like that's just something that they all have to accept because they're famous.
And what the mom would always say to her son, which is like, she got one of your kids, she got you for 18 years. And these women, they look at you and they see that like you're the son of this famous Clippers player. You're going to become a famous player your own self. The truth of the matter is like they have to pay child support. They're always going to be in your life.
It's a completely fair fear that they have.
Like how many times do we hear like these like paternity suits?
Well, there was something even in that one where it's like she literally cuts up the condom, like she puts a hole in it ahead of time or something like that, or is like trying to, and then he catches her doing it when they are driving back from the basketball game during the second quarter in terms of the story. And she has this note to give to Q and she like reads it out loud, but like slut shames the girl and slut shames him. Like she literally calls her a hoe repeatedly and stuff like that. And it's one of those things where I'm like, I feel like that's a concept that like, I don't know, again, like I don't know how we learn these things, right? Because I'm like, I feel like that was the thing I had in my mind too when I was younger, where it was like girls that are like the shy girls or the ones that aren't dating as much and stuff like that, like tend to judge the ones that are, whether it be because like they can't beat them or just because it's like they're dating around a lot and they get jealous of it. Like I don't know what it is, but it's like it was like a weird slut shaming moment where I was like, girl, like you're not better than that girl because you're not throwing yourself at him and not wanting to have sex with him.
Taylor Swift has that lyric that's like, women love hunting witches too, doing your dirtiest work for you. Wow, that really came me easy. And Shawnee wasn't a bitch about it. Shawnee was like, hey girl, like come on, like don't fuck around. The only time she was a bitch about it, and I'll be honest, this is when I didn't like Q too. This was fucked up. Monica walks in, she's looking super good. She's walking in with that man. Where was that when I went to college? They were like, oh, he goes to college. I'm like, honey, the people that I saw in college were wearing like drug rugs and like sweatpants 24/7. Like, where was that in college? And he immediately like walks away from Shawnee and like walks right up to her. He's like, oh, hold up. And like to us, we're like, oh, yay, look at her But no, actually, fuck you. That's so rude. And that's the only time Shawnee was like, oh, I didn't know Nike made dresses.
That bothered me so much that I'm like, you already looked. You made it clear you're looking. Why are you out loud saying something like damn or something like that? And I was like, dude, shut up.
If you wanted to go with Monica, ask Monica.
I honestly, when he walked over to her, I thought he was gonna ask her to dance. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, I'm not into that. That's not a good sign. Why do we make things where it makes it seem like that's a good sign if they like leave someone free? And it's like, why are we always assuming that that means you're the one? That just means that they're gonna leave you, whatever. But also I love Shawnee because she wasn't do you remember her from 10 Things I Hate About You?
Gabrielle Union is one of like my top 5 favorite actresses. But let's always remember that she was the captain of the Clovers from Bring It On, and she's married to a man. She's married to a basketball player in real life.
Oh, hey, there you go.
How can someone age backwards? She plays like the mean girl, and I feel bad.
She does it so well. But no, I get what you mean. She's definitely got like a type that they cast her for.
But when she played the mean girls and when she played the mean girl, Bring It On, it was more like the confident girl than like the mean girl.
Yeah,
But anywho,
but you can, yeah.
you haven't seen Bring It On?
I think I saw it once. I don't remember it. I know there's cheerleaders. I think is Kirsten Dunst in that?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the person who saw She's the Man 5 times last year.
She has this quote at one point where she's like, because I'm a female, I get told to act like a lady. And I love that that was like her response about like, because they always make such a big deal about her attitude sort of thing. And I love that that was like that she's like aware enough to know that like, oh, if I was a guy, my attitude would not be the same kind of issue. Like it'd still be an issue the way that she like talks back to the ref and stuff, but not in the same way that it is because she's a woman.
But I feel like that ref had it out for her.
The concept of refs and how little they are paid is ridiculous. We have these like full-grown people getting paid like there's like weird amount of training and there's very little pay even for the big games. So I feel like they could give less of a fuck sometimes.
The one thing I did like about the USC coach, even though she was kind of like a douche, I liked how everyone on the USC women's team had an attitude. They were feisty, they were fighters, they were like everything she is, if not more so. Like everyone who's like, oh, you're never gonna make it anywhere if you have an attitude, blah, blah, blah. Guess what? She got to USC and everyone there thinks that she's a chump.
Freshman year, I joined this like broadcasting club. Very low stakes. We record it. You can do multiple takes. I was taught to be assertive as the floor director because there's a director inside and there's a director on the main floor. Learn to be assertive, show up to my high school every day in the morning, live, no redos, you gotta just do it. And then I'm like so assertive that I think people were like kind of like shocked and I was like, this is what I was taught.
This girl from my grad program, she messaged me because I posted on Instagram that I had seen this movie and she's like, was this the first time you saw that movie? And I was like, yeah. She's like, oh my God, that's like the Black Notebook. And when she said that, I had this moment where I was like, Noah was toxic as fuck. Hugh was toxic as fuck. And yet somehow, some way, we as a society want them to end up together.
The only difference is this one doesn't have like, you know, Lon, who is clearly the best choice. I guess you're kind of stuck with Q. I don't see anyone else around here that looks better. The only little redemption he got was when, even though he won, he was like double or nothing. Because for the longest time during that game, I hated him. To be fair, I also don't know why he played in the first place. And I also understand why he was giving her attitude because it's like, you're really coming to me 2 weeks before my wedding?
5 years of not speaking to each other?
But then he plays anyway. And I was like, dude, you can't be a dick about it and then still play. I am so confused. You're giving me like whiplash from all these mood swings, these mixed signals. Yeah. And then my only other thing that I love is when she's sitting alone when her date goes to get her a drink and she has like the basketball stance like this. And then she realizes she's in a dress and has to like fix it. And I was like, oh, I love that. I love that kind of like body language. But like I used to do that a lot. And part of me would like do it on purpose in like high school and college where I would like purposely have that kind of stance to like, you know what I mean, like assert dominance or whatever and stuff like that.
I do that shit, the man spreading, the just the taking up of space. You're like, yeah, well here, you know what I mean? This is my spot rather than pick me. I'm the prettiest flower. No, I'm the one who picks. Oh, I love it. I think man spreading is so fun.
It makes sense that he would be toxic, you know what I mean? I think we know that if it was made now, that would be probably the change that would be made with it. But it was so great. And that was all my notes. I had very few notes.
Then let's talk about, okay, so what will we change? May I go first? The only thing I would change, to be honest, is toxicity. That's it. And not even like the full way his toxicity. That's him. That's him as a person. So like though I want to change that aspect because it makes me so uncomfortable, it's who he is, you know what I mean? Like that's who that person.
She sluts shames, he calls him out for it. I feel like there's a good amount of inner dialogue calling each other or calling other people out for stuff. So if there was just like a different moment of her getting to call him out for what he was doing, she ends with like, no, like what you did was not cool. I feel like that would have been enough of a change without having to get rid of that. Cause it's like, we can't just erase those people. These people still exist. People are still toxic. People still, those Noahs and those Qs still exist now, but I just want like female protags that are gonna be like, no,
What would you rate this movie?
8.
Yeah, same, same. I would definitely watch this again if someone asked me to.
Agreed. I also, really quick, I think they did a great job of like when to show games and when to skip over games and stuff like that.
Yeah, and like the fact that the romance of the game is a part of it. Like when she's talking about like I couldn't remember if I had this or that penalties, and he was like 4. You had 4. Finally, I picked a movie that was good. Finally.
So let's go over your past 2 picks.
Fuck off! Fuck off! Fuck off! Fuck off!
No, congrats, you did. This was a great one. Okay, I want to do What Men Want next.
I think it's fun. That's fun. Okay, you know that's a remake off of What Women Want, right?
I don't care. I haven't
'Cause-
seen that one. This is the one I've seen. Is What Women Want also an all black cast? Or
No,
like
it's an all white cast.
oh,
And
no,
it's
I
Mel.
really then.
Yeah, and it's Mel Gibson, and it's like Mel Gibson like can read women's thoughts.
See, that doesn't sound as fun to me because I'm like, I already know what women think. So our next movie is going to be What Men Want. It is currently streaming on Hulu, so go check it out and join back for next week.
Comment down below what you thought about the movie. What do you think about Q? Do you hate him? Redeem him in our eyes? What would you have changed? What you not have changed? What is your rating? And what is a movie that we might have been overlooking for this month that we should look into? Maybe not this month, maybe next year. But as always, my name is Sam,
I'm Belize.
and this has been Heartbreaker Films.
See you next week.